So have you ever tried the buttonhole binding? This, I think, has turned out really lovely. I think it's ever so pretty, and there are so many different ways that you could do this. I think this is a fantastic system. I really love how it looks. And it's actually a lot easier than it possibly looks as well. So if you want to find out exactly how to make this, keep watching and I will take you through step by step. Please make sure that you also hop on over to Sophie's channel. She will also be doing her version of this binding, so you might get some different tips and tricks from her. Right, let's get into the video and see exactly how to make this. Okay, so here are a few things that you are going to need to be able to make this. So first of all, you're going to need your signatures. Now, I like to keep my signatures quite small, in that the number of pages in them isn't very many. So in this one, I've got 4 white ones and 1 pink one. And I've got 6 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 signatures. Now, obviously, you can make your book whatever size you like. For ease, I have made mine half of an A4 piece of paper. So I had an A4 piece of paper, I've chopped it in half, and then I folded that half in half. And that's created this lovely small size. Then I have got some scrapbook paper. Now this is more of a cardstock really. I think it's 230 GSM. So it is quite thick, but it's got this beautiful pattern on. It is plain green on the back, but obviously this is what I want to use for my cover. So to know what size I want for my cover, I'm just going to flip it over so we see the green size, because that's going to be the easiest bit for you to see as well. So all I did is once I had my signatures ready, I just lay a signature on the cover, drew a line underneath so I knew how tall it needed to be, and then from there I did leave a little bit of a gap. So if I line this up with the spines, if the spine's there, as you can see, I've got a bit of a gap here. I will trim this down once it's all bound, but I'm going to keep just a little bit of an overhang on the front cover. To get the thickness of the spine, I kind of grouped all of my signatures together and then I laid them down flat. I did kind of obviously push them together a little bit, because if you let them fan out then it will be quite wide. But obviously you've got to imagine that they're going to get bound in. So I just kind of pushed them together a little bit, made a little mark, and that's how wide my signature was going to be. I've then laid this down again, and I've made a little mark where the signature kind of finishes, same as I've done here. And again, I'm just going to come over slightly and cut this off so I haven't got such a big piece. And for this I'm just going to use a small trimmer rather than get my big one out, but I know that I've just got to come past that line. It's just to make sure that everything is measured properly. I don't want to cut it and then find that the cover then is too short for the signatures, so I'd much rather bind it all and then trim down what I need to afterwards. So now that I've got the thickness of the signature, the next thing I want to do is to create that hole in the middle. So what I've done, you can just cut a rectangle out. I actually used one of my frame dies and I just kind of popped it in the middle, and I measured both sides so it is the same. So I've got about 3.5 centimetres on this side, 3.5 centimetres on that side. Not sure what that is in inches. It's approximately 1.5 inches on each side. And then I've obviously got this shape, which means that I'm going to have this shape cut out on the front and the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold it in place, and I'm just simply going to draw around my die. Now, obviously, if you haven't got dies, you can use whatever you like. Like I said, you don't even necessarily have to have a fancy shape and come into the cover. You may just cut your rectangle out from the spine. It's entirely up to you how decorative you want to go. So just holding this in place, I'm going to draw all the way around. just need to do this bottom section, oops, along here, all the way up to that point. Okay, and then there is my shape. So now I am going to cut this shape out, and then we can start binding in the signatures. What I am going to do is just measure the midpoint here. So let's have a look. So it's just over 7 centimeters. What is it in inches? Oh, just under 3 inches. Okay, it doesn't particularly matter. So I'm going to go for about 1.5 inches ish. It doesn't matter if it's not quite right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, before I cut into this section here, I'm just going to cut out those rectangular bits. So using a small cutting board, I'll show you what I mean. So I'm just going to cut down here and down this side and across the middle. Then I'm going to come down this side and down this side, and then hopefully that will then pop out the middle. And then what I'm going to do is just fold that over like so. Do the same on that side. Okay, and then all I'm going to do is, just to make it slightly straighter, I am just going to straighten up that edge, just so it doesn't look quite so wonky. I'll do the same on this side. We all know I'm not particularly great at cutting, so it just makes it look a little bit more even. Now I am going to just straighten this edge up because I have made that also a little bit wonky. But you ideally want to kind of come inside the pencil line, because I need this to come inside, obviously, where this is going to fold. So I am just going to have to cut a little bit more. See, what you could do is just cut at a slight angle. And we'll do the same on the other side. So again, it doesn't need to be drastic. We're just cutting it at a slight angle, and then it's now going to come inside my lines there. That's what I want. So I'm going to do the same here, which, sorry, I do realise is pretty awkward for you to see because this obviously wants to keep flipping over. But I'm just doing the same thing. So I'm just going to cut it at a slight angle. All the way up into the fold. Well, I think that's gone completely wonky, hasn't it? Yeah, that side was much better than that side. Never mind. Right, okay, so they're going to go up there. Right, I'm now going to cut out the rest. Now, I am better with a craft knife. You can, of course, cut your shape with scissors if you think that's easiest. As I said right at the beginning, make sure that you are checking out Sophie's video. She might have a different method, different way of sharing how she's doing hers. We're both a little bit sad now that this is the last in the series, but we have thoroughly enjoyed it, and we do have another project lined up as well after this, so we are quite excited for that. So moving on to the next side, again just going to keep following the line. I'm just going to turn it. And again. And last little bit off into the middle. Fabulous. Right. Okay, so those two bits are going to get stuck up there. We now need to obviously fold these parts. So I'm just going to get rid of all these pieces. I'm going to bring in my little scoreboard. I'm just going to fold those flaps back over for a moment. And I'm just using a scoreboard just because it makes it so much easier trying to hit it in the right place. So I'm just going to score down those bits. And I am then going to flip it over and do the same on the other side. Now it's a bit more tricky to see for... I'm just trying to see where it is. So it's at 4. You can see that one. And I think it's there. Yeah. That just helps with the creasing a little bit. Brilliant. So that is going to be my little book. Let's pop this away. Right, now we can glue these pieces onto here. Okay, so just going to glue these panels down. And this side. Right, and then we can start sorting out our signatures. So what I'm going to do is tuck my signatures inside my booklet, make sure that they are all flush as they are supposed to be. And then this is how it's going to look. So you can see that kind of cutout piece there, same as on the back. I really like that. I think it looks so effective. So I'm just going to make sure that they are down on the spine. I'm then going to get my pencil and I'm just going to run my pencil down the spine where that cutout piece is. I'm going to do the same on both sides, just to make sure that there is a mark along the signature. So now when I look at it, I can see my pencil marks up and down. Okay, so that is where I know I need to punch my holes. So I'm going to bring this small mat back, but I'm going to flip it over this time. This is, as you can see, where I do my punching. And you're going to need an awl. So with your papers, you just need to open them out, and then you're just going to punch your holes where those marks are. Okay. Okay, so you are then going to need to thread your needle with your thread of choice. In the past, I have used embroidery floss. This time I'm not using embroidery floss. It's like a nylon, only because I'm going back in through the same hole. And I always found embroidery floss either gets knotted and tangled, or I end up going back through the actual embroidery floss. And then again, I get a kind of another knot. So I'm using this, as I said, it's kind of like a nylon-y thread, but you can use wax thread, whatever you have. So you are going to go from your first signature, you're going to go out and through the gap in your spine. You are going to pull it through until you have a little tail, because we need to be able to tie off in a moment. And then you are going up and over and then back through that hole that you have. and then you're just going to pull. So I'm trying to keep a finger in here to hold on to that tail. Just going to slide that loop along because it needs to go over. Oh, hang on. Just noticed that I've looped myself. So you just need to make sure that that's it. So I've got that looped over there. Okay, I'm just going to give that a little bit of a tug just to make sure it's a bit tighter. And then I'm going to tie my knot just inside here. Okay, so again, I'm just going to give that a bit of a pull just so it's tight. And then I can create my knot. Ah, she says. Wonderful. And I will snip that off a bit later. Okay, so we've now got this coming out here. So the next thing you're going to do, so you want to make sure that that piece of thread is down the bottom part of the spine, and then you bring on the next signature, and that's just going to come in and sit on top. And then this time you're going to go through the inside from the outside, so different from the first one. We started on the inside on the first signature. We're now coming in from the outside. However, we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to come all the way round. Sorry, just making sure that this is actually going on the spine, because at the moment it's kind of slipping out onto the cover. There we go. So it's now on the spine. I'm just making sure my two signatures are together. So this comes all the way around, and then what we're going to do is we're going to slip underneath that loop. So I'm not going back inside the signature, I'm slipping underneath the loop, the connection made between the two signatures. Then I'm going to pull that tight, she says. Okay, so just give that a little bit of a pull, so that's tight. And then that's that next one. You're then going to bring on the next signature, and you're going to keep repeating that process. So I'm going to go from the outside in, and just going to bring it up and round. So I just need to make sure that it is obviously tight as we're going through. You don't want to obviously put it too tight, you don't want to rip anything. But again, I'm just going to go underneath, whoops, underneath that loop between the signatures. Okay, so you just pull that through. Again, make sure it's all in line where it's supposed to be. And then we're ready for the next signature. You just keep going like so. So the next one comes in. Okay, I'm just going to hold it in place. We go from the outside in. Oh, just making sure it's going through all the papers. There we go. And again, just lining everything up. See, this is where a clip might come in handy. Just lining everything up. Just making sure that all, again, of those signatures are together. Just giving it a slight pull. Oh, almost lost the thread from a needle. Just giving it a slight pull and then going underneath again, that last link. And pulling it. Okay, next signature, going to do the same thing. So from the outside into the signature. and over. Oops. So up and over again, just giving it a little bit of a pull just to make sure that we are all tight. And then going to loop it underneath that previous one. Again, just giving it a little bit of a pull, make sure it's all tight. And then the final signature, we're going to do the same. So we're going to go from the outside in, up, and over. Just trying to grab all of my signatures, up and over. Again, I am going to loop under. However, obviously we haven't got another signature to go into, so I'm just going to go back into the same hole. Okay, again, I'm just going to give it a bit of a pull just to make sure that it's taut but not too tight. Okay, so I'm just bringing that down a little bit, and then you can kind of tie it off. So you can see I've got plenty left over. I'd much rather have more than I need than not enough. So I'm just going to loop that round, create my knot, do it again, create the knot. Okay, and then snip that off. Right, now we're just going to repeat the same process. Now I actually find it easier just flipping this over and doing the same thing just the other way. But you can see how the binding is looking. So I'm just adjusting that last signature to make sure that it does actually go on the spine, like so. Okay, so you're kind of getting that threaded effect. So I'm going to do the same on this side. It's exactly the same process. Okay, so what I'm doing now is just to kind of help keep these pieces of string where they need to be. I'm just using, this was the bits I kind of cut off that I had left over when I'd done my 7 lengths and I'd finished binding. So I'm just coming in and I'm just kind of pinching it together slightly in the middle. And this is purely optional. This is just decorative now. But as I said, it just helps also keep them a bit closer together. I'm just tying a little knot in there and popping a teeny tiny little bow in. Now, as I said, decorative, don't have to do this whatsoever. It was just something that I wanted to kind of add to it. So I'm just making sure that it is actually a small bow. And then I'm just going to trim those last little bits like so. And there we have the spine. As you can see, you've got that beautiful kind of cutout piece as well. Now my cover, as we can see, is still too big. So that's the next bit we've got to sort out. So I'm just going to bring in this very small cutting board again. I'm just going to open it up to a certain point, and then I'm going to use my craft knife to just trim down. So I'm actually going to turn it the other way just because it is easier. And I'm just going to make a little mark. So actually, let's use the thing as a guide. So I'm just going to line up this. I'm going to come to this mark here, although it's not terribly helpful because I can't now see it at the bottom. About there. So I'm going to trim that off in a minute. I'm just going to spin it round and do the same on the other side. So I need a little mark there. And a mark there. Okay, I'm then going to use a ruler to just trim down that section because this is the bit that I don't need. Now you can of course again use a trimmer. Oh, okay, that wasn't quite deep enough. You can of course use a trimmer. I just thought it might be quicker using a knife. There we go, one side done. And then any pencil marks I am going to rub out in a moment, but you can see that that's now more in line with the rest of the book. So I'm going to do the same on this side. Oh, try not to cut through my actual ruler. Probably should be using a metal ruler for this. Okay, yeah, that'll do. Fabulous. How is that? No, I think actually I still need a little bit off that side. I was obviously being a bit generous on that side. Let's try that again. So it wasn't much, but I just needed to come in a little bit. So let's try that. That's better. That's better. Right, okay. And then there we have it. So this is the little book. This is how it looks out with the little cutout. I think it looks super, super pretty. And as we've already said, it does lay nice and flat, which I really like as well. It obviously helps if you are journaling, that you do have a nice sort of flat surface. And just another kind of decorative way to create a spine on your books. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope that this video was somewhat useful to you. I've really enjoyed playing around with all of these different binding methods, and I know Sophie has as well. Some of them have been more challenging than others, but I think it's been worth it in the end. It's really nice, like I say, to try something new. Some of them I have done before. Some of them were new to me, and there are now some that I definitely will be going back to for any future journals that I make. Now Sophie and I will be doing a live where we'll be kind of summing up all of the different binding methods that we have done. As I said, we have got another project coming up in October, so we do hope that you will be back for that. For now though, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please consider giving me a thumbs up. It really helps out my channel. If you would like to drop a comment down below, that would be lovely too. I really enjoy reading through and responding to those. If you are not already a subscriber, I would really love for you to do so. Please also make sure that you click that bell button. That way you are notified of any new crafty videos. Don't forget to go and check out Sophie's channel. But for now, that is all from me. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next crafty video. Bye for now.